Welcome to Financially Legal, the podcast of inspiration and tactical advice for the small, entrepreneurial, mission-driven, consumer-facing lawyer. Case management is fast becoming the heart, even the operating system of modern law firms. Many law firms know that they need case management, but they're unsure about which one of the hundreds or potentially even thousands of options to choose. We at Gravity Legal know that lawyers are searching for this problem because they and their law firms ask us this question all the time. I'm your Financially Legal host, Dan Lear. This limited podcast series on Financially Legal is designed to provide firms with the information and insight to choose the system that's right for them. Over the coming episodes, we'll talk with a number of case management companies. We're asking them all the same questions with the goal of allowing viewers or listeners to evaluate their options more or less side by side. Today, I'm talking with Jonathon Fishman, CEO of LeanLaw. Founded in 2015, LeanLaw is the financial operating system for small to medium-sized law firms. LeanLaw helps law firms run better businesses by automating the most important financial workflows from time tracking through invoice and reporting. I'm pleased to welcome Jonathon Fishman from LeanLaw to the Financially Legal podcast, this legal case management special series that we're working on. Jonathon, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me, Dan.
Jonathon, we have a list of questions, a number of things that we want to walk through pretty systematically, but I do think it would be nice to just quickly help folks orient around you at the very least. I've already introduced LeanLaw, but I know you're the CEO, but maybe give just a quick background on who you are and how long you've been with LeanLaw and your background, maybe.
Thanks, Dan. Sure. So Jonathon Fishman, and I am one of the founders and the chief executive officer of LeanLaw. I've been in early stage companies from the very beginning of my career. I started my professional career in San Francisco, and you couldn't help but find yourself and stumble into early stage companies. And I was in there at a very interesting time where the tech community, sort of the peninsula, was coming together with the creative community of Marin, and we had the multimedia gulch merging south of Market. I always, how do I say it, the opportunity of early stage. I joined LeanLaw through an introduction to Gary Allen, who was the original founder and the sort of classic user turned entrepreneur lawyer. And we quickly bonded over his sort of pragmatic nature and my ability to like chaos and organize it. And we focused on starting and addressing this law community. And early on, I didn't know much about how law firms operated. I knew a lot about small business, but I didn't know a lot about law firms. And over the course of our conception to where we are today, we came to be a company in 2015 and launched a product in 2016. And I was always in charge of the customer through the early days, and I've had probably over 4,000 conversations with law firms, either the administrators or the firm managers, and have become quite knowledgeable on law firm operations. So I really understand the mechanics of how law firms operate through these conversations. And Gary, obviously being the 35-year practicing attorney, always brought the voice of the end user into the company. From a background perspective, I was always about taking early stage companies and helping them grow and become into where we are today at LeanLaw in what we call second stage scale. So that's really operationalizing the company and giving it its foundation to grow, and operationally from an engineering, onboarding, customer success, sales, etc. And I became the CEO in 21 with the intentionality around saying, okay, now let's go. We've built a product, we have product market fit, we have a very loyal customer base. Now let's begin to scale the organization. So that was natural to me. And this customer base was very organic because I had always just pure joy talking to other lawyers and firm administrators about their business. That's always what I had done in other early stage companies that I had built. So it was very natural to assume this role in LeanLaw. And you know what I think what I was good at was translating, listening to the customer and thinking about what they needed, and then translating that back into the organization, and vice versa. What we're trying to do at LeanLaw and translating that back into the vernacular that a law firm could receive. Having the foundation, I was not the CEO, Gary was, having the foundation of having all of those client meetings was a great framework that allowed me to then ascend to this position to say, okay, now let's go. Let's steward the company into the second stage scale.
I love it. People don't often use the words pure joy and talking to lawyers in the same sentence, but that's one that warms my heart. And I'm glad that you found that
Well,
here.
a little aside, and I know we've got to be mindful of time, but it was interesting when I first started talking to lawyers. I was a bit intimidated, and we have to coach a little bit of that because lawyers have this perception that they're tough and difficult. And I've learned a few things. Number one is I was in this meeting with this attorney, and I'm selling, and I'd already met with some of the other staff, and it was the last meeting. He's the principal attorney, and he was a litigator.
Mm.
And he sit there in his office, we're on a Zoom call, and he's sitting there, just note, and he's asking me questions. And I started to feel this a little bit of stress, and I'm realizing I feel like I'm being deposed because he's saying, and didn't 2 questions ago you asked this, and I'm like, yeah, I did, but it got a little flustered, and something clicked in my head, and it wasn't him trying to be intimidating. That's just how he
That's how he solves
understands
problems.
how to
Mhm.
operate. So once you accept that and understand that mindset, it became very easy to say, okay, you're going to depose me. What do you want to know?
Exactly.
And so that we coach that inside our organization, how to be thinking that lawyers are intellectually curious. They're very smart. They ask very direct and tough questions. What's awesome about the legal community is once you build confidence with your constituents, your lawyer, they're happy to do what you tell them to do. They would love to be told what to do
Right.
around financials. They just have to trust you first. So that's important when we building trust with our clientele.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. I think keying off of your journey was a great place to launch into my first question, which is, as a co-founder of this company, what problem did you start LeanLaw or build this software to solve? And then my follow-up questions or guiding questions for this is, do you feel like you've solved that problem, or have you shifted your vision around the problem that you're solving along the way?
I think it goes back to our mission, and it goes back to Gary, which is we want to help law firms run better businesses. And we've never wavered. We've fine-tuned that and gotten better at articulating it, but we've never wavered on that mission. Early on, we were very clear we wanted to be a financially focused tool, helping law firms manage the full life cycle of their client engagement, timekeeping, billing, through reporting, through invoice delivery, payments, and reporting. The initial problem we were trying to solve was a modernization of how law firms operate their financial workflows. And we saw what the industry was doing, full practice management tools. And there were some interesting ones that were cloud-based because it was a big deal back in the day to be cloud-based. Clio was just emerging in its own brand in 2015. But what we saw the opportunity was that instead of being a practice management tool, we wanted to be financially focused because we believe if you want to run a better business, it has to start with the financial workflows. It doesn't matter how good at depositions or memorandums that you're writing. If you can't get your bills out and get paid and manage cash flow, it will all fall apart at some point. So that was one premise. We wanted to build a refined tool around financial management, financial workflows. And that was one problem we wanted to solve because we felt there were too many players that were trying to be all-in-one tools. The second was that we had a very strong belief about best of breed. We didn't believe we needed to create every feature, every facet. Again, we wanted to refine around the workflows of financial management. So we, from the very get-go, took a mantra of our organization, which is what can we automate, what can we integrate with, and what are the data opportunities? And the first sort of realization of that was how were we going to handle accounting? If we wanted to be financial management, we had to be very savvy at accounting, and we did not want to build an accounting tool, so we integrated with QuickBooks Online. And early on, that was very important. Best of breed, don't want to do accounting because we want to integrate, automate, and data. Let's integrate with QuickBooks. And so that was an early decision that proved to be a very good decision. Intuit has recognized us as a premier app. We collaborate with them on a sales and marketing aspect. So that core problem was the modernization of the law firm's financial operations, and it was realized through this best of breed. So we've, again, never wavered on that. I think what's evolved in our thinking is just to understand our customer and understanding how our product needed to advance to really get at the competencies we wanted to create inside these organizations. And then, of course, any business evolves and realizing the opportunity that's in front of them. So there's a product evolution as you get smarter and understand your customer better, but then there's a financial model evolution as you get smarter and understand your customer better. We couldn't ignore fintech coming into the product. And we saw it as a revenue opportunity for the company, but we also saw it as a workflow opportunity for our law firms and a revenue opportunity for our law firm's client or for our law firm's financials. The idea that in 2015, integrating payments and a payment workflow was not part of our business model. But as the industry changed, it became very critical. And it wasn't just to say, hey, we can accept a credit card or an ACH. It was to say, what is that relationship, that financial relationship between law firm and law firm client? So I think that the good businesses evolve, and fintech is a great example of how it still goes back to our mission, help law firms run better businesses. But you discover that along the way. The next major sort of endeavor or lift that's happening right now is artificial intelligence. We talked about machine learning and AI in 2018, but there was no real practical use of that. Have we solved that problem? I think that when we think about our client and how they want to do more with less, how they want a upmarket, sophisticated yet easy to use platform, how that we've modernized how they handle that full life cycle of their client management, I do think we solved that problem, and it's validated in our success of retaining our customers. But we're always evolving, and there's always more work to be done. So you, as a CEO, you kind of look at it like grass always needs to be mowed. There's always more work to be done.
So keying off of that, talk to the audience and signal or clarify for them who your ideal customer is. I've heard you say financially focused. Narrow that down. Who in the world do you folks think you serve the best? How large is that firm? What is the firm's revenue? Are they in a specific geographic area? Do they use particular fee structures? Like, who is it that you want to be talking to out there?
We have two what we call ideal client profiles. It's a marketing term that you call ICP.
Yep.
Ideal client profiles. And we label them as in two ways that make it easy for folks to do. The first, which is our primary ICP, is called Make QuickBooks Work. So when we talk about who these firms are, these are high-performing attorneys that in many instances left larger firms because they wanted to rid themselves of overhead. They wanted to rid themselves of the bureaucracy and all of the sort of procedures that are supposed to happen in a larger firm. They have an independent mindset, they're entrepreneurial, and they have a sensitivity, of course, to the financial operations. That's important to them. Because our product is financially focused, they're refined and looking for a very specific kind of platform or tool that doesn't have all of the practice management. They don't want it. And they don't want it either because they don't want to use it or because their firm's big enough and diverse enough that one tool doesn't really fit all their needs. Or they might be in a niche like an intellectual property attorney where they have a very niche workflow tool around the actual work they do and want a more refined, financially focused billing tool. These clients thrive in wanting more data. They want to understand the health of a client, the health of the firm, the health of their workforce. So they're very sensitive about data and having accessibility to data and making data transparent. Many of our clients track compensation. It's one of those features. They track hourly billing. That's another trigger that we look. But fundamentally, they have intentionality around wanting to use QuickBooks. They want to use QuickBooks because it's the predominant cloud platform. They want to use it because it makes sense to them. They want to use QuickBooks because they feel a certain security that their data is stored in a product that they feel is an institution and Intuit, a $70-80 billion company. So Make QuickBooks Work are these sort of, as I mentioned, these upmarket folks want a sophisticated but easy to use tool that's refined around workflow and want to be in QuickBooks, and they want to make it work. They're typically either they're starting a firm or they're coming and saying, hey, we're on QuickBooks and it's not working as efficiently as it could with this other tool I'm using, or they're coming into our second ICP. So the first one's Make QuickBooks Work. The second one is on-prem to cloud, we call them, which just means they're using an on-premise tool like Juris or PC Law or Time Slips or something of that nature. And now they're saying, hey, we're going to get off and want to modernize and bring our product into the 21st century. And again, there's an intentionality around QuickBooks. They're very eager to put their data, their accounting data, into a best of breed platform. Firm size, you asked us about firm size. When I pitch LeanLaw, I talk about being financially focused, our integration with QuickBooks, and then third is that we work with what we call small mid-market, so that our ideal client is really 5 to 100 with a specificity 10 to 50 is really our sweet spot. That doesn't mean we don't have a slew of what we call micro clients on our platform. We have hundreds and hundreds of micro client firms that love our tool because it's easy to use and it works well with QuickBooks. And we have a few much larger clients, but where we thrive, that 50 user law firms, we just thrive in that space.
Got it. Super helpful. Okay, so now, Jonathon, I want to move on to a series of kind of rapid fire questions. Ideally, I want to keep the answers to these about as relatively short, relatively direct, so folks can understand, like if they're looking for fairly specific features, they can understand whether you offer these or whether you're able through your kind of ecosystem to make these available to firms. So I'm just going to roll through these right now. Does your firm or do you folks integrate with systems that handle case management or matter tracking?
Not at this date. It's part of when you think about case. No, but when you think about case when you think about case or matter management, there's the financial management of it, which we thrive on. When we think about matter and case management from a practice management standpoint, document tracking, emails and whatnot, that's not who we are. So part of our long-term strategy, and this is currently Q2 2023, in Q3, Q4, we're going to develop some very big strides around our integration strategy that will make us much easier to integrate with other tools that do practice management. And there are a few that are very much LeanLaw is targeting. So we approach case management from an integration standpoint, especially looking at niche players around intellectual property or immigration and whatnot to do that. So we think that those products underwhelm from a finance standpoint. And we feel like the combination of a Cloudline and LeanLaw makes a lot of sense to a contingent market. So Cloudline is one of the tools that we're thinking about, Neos and others on the contingent side.
Perfect. Does the system offer, or do you integrate with document management or document storage platforms?
Yeah, through partners, we today integrate with SharePoint and the Microsoft 365 platform. Again, in that integration strategy, you'll see us integrate with NetDocuments and iManage.
Love it.
By the end of the year, we'll have one of those too.
Does the system offer, or do you integrate with time tracking and billing software or capabilities?
We feel pretty strong at that. So we don't integrate with any time tracking or billing capabilities. We own that. And that's why we have come to be as a product. Again, we've had some people ask about, hey, we want very specific time tracking tools that are around timers and things like that. And we're open to that idea, but there's 4 different ways to track time in LeanLaw, and we have millions of timed entries on a yearly basis that are being produced in our product. So we feel really competent in that subject. And then we're as good, if not better, than any tool in the industry at billing.
Perfect. Does your system offer, do you guys integrate with systems that offer calendar and schedule management capabilities?
That again goes back to that same integration strategy. So 365, when we look at Outlook and as a function of calendar management, we see that from a time tracking perspective, not a case management perspective. And then of course, docketing, we don't have a docketing tool today, but we will as part of this broader integration strategy.
Perfect. Does the system offer a built-in CRM features, or is that something, or more kind of CRM or marketing features, or is that something you folks integrate with or think about?
Again, integration strategy. When we think about CRM, I think that's a broadly loose term. We certainly have CRM functionality because we have the ability to add clients, and we have custom form fields that people can add all sorts of different custom form fields, and you can report off of those custom form fields. So there is a facet of CRM in our platform, but we're not Lawmatics. So we're not trying to be a full marketing and CRM tool. We actually have a client and we're working right now doing a sort of beta integration with Lawmatics. So if someone wants to use that because they have a B2C like law practice, business to consumer law practice, Lawmatics might be a perfect tool for that. And we like those guys a lot.
Perfect. And then final question of these, does your system offer financial and balance sheet reporting?
So when we think about reporting, we think about it in 2 buckets. if you talk about the firm's financials, the pure P&L, balance sheet, statement of cash flows, because we treat QuickBooks as a source of truth, you have a robust engine of financial reporting for the firm in QuickBooks. What LeanLaw thrives at is the client matter and attorney reporting. So within LeanLaw, we take all of the reporting around the client, the matter, and the attorney. So you can look at WIP bill collected. You can look at productivity, your write down, all of the things that a law firm really needs to understand in terms of the effectiveness of how the firm is operating. So it's not just talking about, hey, did we make money this quarter? It's saying, how much did we realize with a particular attorney, or what practice area are they overperforming or underperforming? The other area that's very important to LeanLaw, and I almost differentiate it from reporting, is our compensation tracking. This is probably one of the best and most unique features within LeanLaw, is how dynamic and automated our full compensation tracking. And it's all built off of Helen Dorr, which is this law firm that created this model of who found it, who mines it, and who grinds it, the finder, miner, grinder, or who originated it, who's responsible, and who worked it. And we have architecture at the firm level in terms of settings, at the user level, and at the client matter level to handle many different facets and permutations of compensation tracking, all done in real time off of collected revenue. And then, of course, the last piece of that is distribution. So that sells. Users come in, or firms come in and look at our compensation tracking, and that's something that they say, wow, we can't get that. We can't get that in other tools, at least not as robust as what LeanLaw does. So just to summarize that, you have the full back end and back office financial reporting in QuickBooks, but then LeanLaw offers you a very customizable, very graphical representation of your essentially law firm reporting.
How does your system ensure data security, privacy, and uptime or continuity?
So I think there's a bottom-up, top-down approach on that. So I'll start with the top-down. As a young company, we're working towards a full SOC audit, and we're starting those best practice today. It's something that we've shored up in the last 3 years to essentially build the policies and the architecture to adhere to the industry standards, which SOC is one of those. And that creates all sorts of policies and best practices around privacy, data security, data management, risk management, et cetera. And those policies are regenerated, so it becomes a fabric of the culture of the company. The bottom-up approach is that we've always picked really smart tools and used sensible tactics in terms of managing people's data. LeanLaw hosts its environment in the Microsoft Azure network. It's co-located in 2 environments. Our data sets are backed up to Amazon S3. So we're living in an architecture that's very secure. We've never said, hey, we should own the data. The second thing is that we're very careful about the PCI compliance and other data, that we don't try to take on something we're not ready to do. So we have a partnership with Gravity, and we expect you guys as the experts of financial management to handle the security and around the credit cards. That doesn't mean there isn't oversight and we don't have checks and balances with your organization, but LeanLaw is not trying to hold and store your credit card information, and we're not writing it down on a piece of paper. We're very mindful of that.
That makes me feel good.
We don't do that.
Good to know.
And we found we create very strong best practices and have contingency plans, gosh forbid, if something does really happen with that. And then I think there's a third level, which is inside the product. And I know this is subtly a different question than what you're asking, but I think it's important, which is, how do you ensure that the right people have the right access to the data inside LeanLaw, meaning inside a firm, because that's another level of data security. And LeanLaw has not only a very rigid and flexible permissions architecture to make sure the right people in the firm have the right accessibility to the data, but also even more controls to say, hey, maybe these people can't have any visibility. So even though in the broader scheme, they might have visibilities to a certain matter, you can go into a specific one and say, hey, Dan, I'm sorry, this is private. You can't have access to this matter. So even though you have a global policy that says you can have visibility to all matters because you're the firm manager, we can say it's, for whatever reason, we don't want to do it at this micro level and turn you off. So we think about, in the broad scope, how is LeanLaw operating and being mindful from a data security bottom up, top down, but then also inside the product, making sure the right people have the right access to the data.
Perfect. That's super helpful. And I also imagine, obviously, the deep integration with QuickBooks ensures that all of that financial data benefits from all of the deep work that, as you said, Intuit as a 70, $80 billion company is able to offer as well.
Yeah,
So
that's part of our best of breed philosophy, right? We don't want to hold your documents. We don't want to hold your financial data. And our job is to create the workflow, what we can integrate, what we can automate, what the data are, so that we can take these disconnected systems and bind them together. But your point is well taken, that their financial data lives in QuickBooks, and they'll outshine me every day of the week from a security standpoint because they have an army of engineers and professionals that are guarding that data on a daily basis. And that's one of the sort of peace of mind components that people have when they're intentionality around QuickBooks. So I want my data in QuickBooks versus some smaller company that might be legal specific.
what kind of customer support does LeanLaw offer? Phone, chat, email, all three? And when is it available?
So we have a philosophy at LeanLaw, and it's been from the get-go. And I used to be in the early days in the queue answering support calls, which I was great at, but terrible at because I would get so knee deep in reconciling people's trust accounts and things like that. But it was a good lesson learning. To answer your question, we have both chat and phone support. Typically, we start with chat and then we escalate it to a Zoom call because sometimes a shared screen is just more effective. When clients are coming into the environment, meaning they're buying LeanLaw, they can either have a free service we call a Quick Start Coaching, which has a QuickBooks Pro Advisor that we employ that helps them get started with LeanLaw to make sure that LeanLaw is connected to QuickBooks and they understand the basics. And that's a 1-hour session that's free. Or many of our mid-market clients purchase what we call white gloves onboarding service, which is an elaborate process that we help them onboard through 3 phases of onboarding. So it's really important that when you think about customer support, and I know you asked the question in the, hey, what support do you offer? Setting them up right up front, having the right architectural tools, knowledge bases, videos, whatnot, having the quick start, having the onboarding is critical. We want you to onboard in a very efficient and effective way. Hence, once you get to our support, which is standard business hours, I don't know them off the top of my head, but people ask for support, they get support right away. Once they get to support, we're hoping, and what mostly happens is that, hey, they're just asking questions like, oh, I forgot to ask, or how do I do this? Or maybe there's something happening in the system, but we've institutionalized it through our onboarding process. So onboarding is really critical, and that's very much an important function. Our support people have a mix of skills that obviously have deep product knowledge, but they also have accounting knowledge. We're adding engineers to our support team so that we have this, what we call subject matter experts. And what's really critical for us is that in our environment, we always have an accounting professional that's part of our support team, because many times people come up and ask accounting questions and we want to be supportive. We don't want to be their accountant, but we want to make sure that we support them because we're so financially focused.
How do you price? How's LeanLaw priced? And help me understand it simply, right? Again, I'm a customer who wants to learn about the system. Explain to me in a pretty simple fashion how I pay for LeanLaw.
It's really easy. Just take the number of unique users that you need in LeanLaw and multiply that by either our core version or our pro version. So we have 2 versions of the product. Most small micros will use core, and it's just a simplified version of LeanLaw, and it's priced at, I should know it off the top of my head, I think it's on an annualized basis, $40 per seat and $50 on a month-to-month basis. And so if you and I are in a law firm and we have one other person, there'd be 3 times 40, it's $120 a month. It's as simple as that. That includes all service. You might pay for some onboarding if you choose, or you might just do a quick start. If you go to our pro version, that's priced at $55 a month per user or $65 on a month-to-month basis. The difference between pro and core is really simple. More sophisticated accounting, more sophisticated reporting, more user permissions and oversight. So better management of users, better management accounting, better reporting. And so that 95% of any mid-market client that we call that 5 to 100 user firm, but 90% are buying the pro version. That's where, because of the permissions, the oversight, the savvy accounting, the leads, billing, things of that nature. So it's not a complicated business model. Just got a user, that's on the annualized basis, $55 a month.
Love it. What are your most popular integrations?
QuickBooks is first and foremost.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
That drives the lion's share. I think what people are very eager for in our embedded integrations is obviously 365 integration. And what they're excited about is the idea of how AI and integrating with 365 can really help frame the time track during the course of a day. That's where we see artificial intelligence that's going to start creeping in, is looking across and being smart about, oh, Dan was meeting with Jonathan. Maybe there's Jonathan's from LeanLaw and Dan's from Gravity. Maybe there's a client matter. Maybe there's an email, whatever it might be. And we met for an hour. So 365 is really called for. I think what I'm really eager for beyond 365 is some of what we think are best of breed tools in the legal industry. Net documents, as an example, iManage, a law toolbox for docketing. We don't want to integrate with everything. We just want to integrate with a subset of tools that we think are the best. And that goes back to our best of breed. So QuickBooks today, Gravity Legal, we're very proud of our integration with you folks. We think we're doing some things with Gravity Legal as a function of handling retainer management and invoice delivery that are very unique to the industry and are extraordinarily well received by our client base. And we are going to continue down that pathway with your company and further advancing that Gravity Legal integration. And then the next big one that we'll do is, it's already queued up and it's essentially most of it's already specified as our 365 integration. We think that, and we'll get to Google as well. We're a Google company, so I want to be in Google for our own internal purposes, but we recognize that Google is creeping in and emerging as a significant player in the table, especially as these millennials are starting their own firm. They just want to be on Google.
I think Office is still, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in legal. Office is still the predominant preference for sure.
I just hate losing deals. I just hate losing deals because we don't have Google integration. And I'm like, we can do one, do the other.
Okay, final question, Jonathan. You've already touched on this, but I'm going to turn the mic over to you. You're talking to one of those two ideal customer profiles, maybe both. Give us your best sales pitch. Why should someone who's listening to this or trying to learn more about LeanLaw by leveraging this resource that we're putting out, why should they choose LeanLaw?
I think it's easiest to think of it this way. If you're a firm that uses QuickBooks or has any intentionality around using QuickBooks, and you want a financially focused tool, there is no better entity in the legal industry than LeanLaw. We solve many of the problems in terms of how QuickBooks integrates with the tool and build really smart workflows around how you ask for retainers, how you track your time, how you send your invoices. So I think that's number one, is really looking at the deficiencies around QuickBooks and how your current tool is working with QuickBooks. We just solve many of those problems, and QuickBooks is the source of truth. That's the firm operator. So if you're a firm operator, that's your mindset. That's what drives you. If you're a firm manager, if you're a general manager, if you're a general partner or something like that, or an attorney, the reason you use LeanLaw is twofold. One is it's darn easy to use. It's intuitive. It makes sense. It's probably less expensive than what you're using today. And your back office will be happy because it works with QuickBooks better than what you're doing today. But I think more importantly, our data, our dashboards, our ability to surface meaningful and actionable information is right at your fingertips. If you want to know the financial status of a client, one click. You want to look at your productivity report across all your attorneys and understand what write-down was or what WIP bill collected is, it's one click. If you want to look at your productivity or your WIP bill collected against your clients, it's one click. And I think that because we have a specificity around the financial focus with a mission of helping that law firm run a better business, we thrive at helping you surface the most important data to you and make it easy for you to get access to what you need and don't have to go ask someone for it. We're a modern tool. We work on the devices that you want to work on. And if you think about where we're headed, and you think about the alignment of LeanLaw today and the advancements we're making in client intake, how you align with your client financially, how you deliver your invoice, how you get paid, think about our integration strategy. We're a future investment. We're not a present investment. And what I mean by that is our company is growing in a way around financial studies and thinking modernly, thinking about how do we can take disconnected systems and integrate them into one and make it easier for you to operate your business and focus on law. We don't believe that the future is all in ones. We don't believe that these siloed tools with accounting and everything siloed and everything, we don't believe in that. We believe in the idea of what we can integrate, what we can automate, and what the data opportunities. And we think that's the future, because more and more law firms are going to have more and more tools, and those are going to be disconnected, which creates manual work. And we don't believe in that. We believe in connecting that. So, when I talk about it, if you have intentionality around QuickBooks, just to summarize, and there's pain in your back office and managing that relationship, and you want a more intuitive front end, and you want a tool that says, hey, in the future, this is going to integrate and work with the other tools and create really smart workflows, we're in a great solution.
How can listeners or viewers find out more?
Oh, it's just go to our website. It's easy. It's LeanLaw, LeanLaw.co, LeanLaw.co, and there's plenty of information there. And where you can reach, I'm Jonathon Fishman, and I'm on LinkedIn. I'm very accessible. If anyone here wants to ask me a question, they should ask me a question. LinkedIn's a great way to do it, or you can email me, fishman@myleanlaw.com, MYLEANLAW.com. So however they want to reach us, we're here.
Love it. Thank you so much, Jonathon. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, Dan, thank you for having me, and thank you and your team for the collaboration that we have with your organization. We're very grateful for our relationship with you.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of our special series on legal case management. If you like the content on Financially Legal, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. You can also go to gravity-legal.com/financiallylegal, find Get the Latest from Financially Legal on the right-hand side of the page, enter your email, and we'll keep you updated on Financially Legal and Gravity Legal on the regular.